Water scarcity is a huge crisis inside the forest. It's the elephant in the room which nobody really wants to talk about or address beyond a point. Yes, I'm a dentist, and my husband is also a dentist. He's a periodontist, somebody who treats gum diseases. Dentists need a lot of paraphernalia, equipment, and all that to do the treatment, so it's not easy to just shift. 0.1% of that must be forest conservation. It's just left open while we are brushing and washing our face, everything. We don't think of shutting the tap when we don't need that water.
Did we tell the guys who constantly keep on calling Swiggy and Zomato for it?
I just stop wasting water.
Earth is constantly sending us signals through climate change, through natural calamities, and through water scarcity. Sadly, many of these calls go unanswered and unheard. Missed calls from Earth is a humble effort to listen, learn, and amplify voices that are working tirelessly to listen to what Mother Earth has to say. Through this YouTube podcast, we share with you inspiring stories of a number of people who listen to Mother Earth and act on what she says. They are contributing towards conservation, sustainability, and responsible living because saving Earth is no more a choice, it's a shared responsibility. Today, we are honored to have with us Dr. Sarita Subramaniam, the founder of Earth Brigade Foundation. She leads an extraordinary mission, installing nearly 200 solar powered water pumps inside forest ecosystems, ensuring life saving water access for wildlife during extreme summers. From being a dental surgeon in Mumbai to becoming wildlife conservationist, her journey is a powerful reminder that protecting nature doesn't require a different profession. It requires a different perspective. Let's listen to a call Earth has been trying to make for years. Let's begin. Hi, this
Okay.
is Vinci Hans. Today we have Dr. Sarita Subramaniam with us, the co founder of the Earth Brigade Foundation. Hi, Dr. Sarita. Could you tell us a little bit more about your Earth Brigade Foundation?
Our NGO was formed by my husband and I. We are the directors and co-founders of our NGO, which was formed under the Section 8 Companies Act in 2017. Our flagship project is Project Aquarius, where we do solar installations, pump set installations inside the forest to provide drinking water for animals, wild
Wow,
animals.
interesting. Could you tell us more about what exactly it is with the solar which you do in the forest?
So we've been traveling across the length and breadth of the country in search of, we are bird watchers. So we've seen 1,000 plus species of the 1,300 plus species seen in India. So our travels took us to a lot of different habitats. At the end of it, we also realized that it's time to give back. At the same time, we realized that water is a huge crisis. Water scarcity is a huge crisis inside the forest. It's the elephant in the room which nobody really wants to talk about or address beyond a point. And since I wanted to work directly in wildlife conservation, so I feel that if I'm a wildlife lover or I have a wildlife based NGO, I my primary beneficiaries have to be wildlife and forest. It is against, it's contrary to the prevalent narrative where even wildlife NGOs are supposed to help the human communities living around the forest and hope that if their need is taken care of, the forest department can do the wildlife scientific management that they do. This is a, for me, a very confusing thing because I feel if I am a wildlife lover, I should help wildlife. If you are, I can collaborate with human based NGOs and support the locals living around the forest who are considered as the primary stakeholder. To me, there are no primary stakeholders other than forests and wildlife. So if when I realized that water was a scarcity issue, and the forest department with their limited budgets was providing water through diesel tankers, we wanted to go the sustainable route, and so we chose the renewable, sustainable, non-polluting solar powered pump sets to provide water. Now a lot of people have told me that I'm pampering wildlife because wildlife will find water by themselves.
Right.
The thing is, we are only changing the modality of delivery of water. The forest department, knowing the grave situation in the forest, was providing water through diesel water tankers. The
Right.
reason why the forest department was providing water was because traditionally, instinctively, the animals would move from one part of the forest, which was dry in summer, towards another forest or another part of the forest which had water. That was their instinct. But now the migratory corridors are getting blocked by us humans, both for our individual needs and for linear infrastructure projects. So the animals are getting islanded. Now, in search of water, because it's a do or die situation for them in summer, they have to move outside the forest and they go towards human settlements. And when
Right.
they go towards human settlements, the human wildlife conflict arises. So at the bottom line, it's we wanted to have compassion, but also prevent human wildlife conflict situations. And that's why we chose to provide water.
Very interesting. Surprising. You say Dr. Sarita. I believe you're a dentist by profession.
Yes, I'm a dentist, and my husband is also a dentist. He's a periodontist, somebody who treats gum diseases. But yes, we are both practicing dent. I mean, I'm not practicing since 2017 as much, but yes, we are practicing dentists. I
I'm
also happen to be one of the only probably human dentist who consistently does root canals for dogs and cats at a veterinarian's clinic.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
heard
never
it
thought
right. Yeah.
about that earlier.
Yeah, because India doesn't have veterinary dentistry as a subject, and there are no veterinary dentists in India. So I offer to do the root canal treatment for the dogs and cats, pets, in the vet's clinic. I can't do it in my own clinic. He has to anesthetize the animal, and once the animal is anesthetized, I do the root canal procedure. And whatever he pays me for it, I donate it to charity because I don't want to earn off animals.
Wow. Any wildlife animals you have done the dentistry
No,
on?
I've not had the good fortune of helping wild animals. I would love to, but I don't think it is. I mean, I can probably go to a zoo if it's needed, but dentists need a lot of paraphernalia, equipment, and all that to do the treatment. So it's not easy to just shift. But I would love to. Given the opportunity, I will not give it up.
Wow, that sounds great.
Okay.
And I believe your foundation does have negligible overheads.
Yeah. Uh, my husband and I, we are the founders and co-founders, directors of the organization. We don't take even 1 rupee as salary. We choose not to take. And we are managing with one admin executive, two people who support us with our social media content, and a house staff. That's it. So our salaries are like negligible. Our compliances take up more than our salary, but that's mandatory in India. So, which is why we are able to keep our expenses very lean and minimal. So that's the reason why we have managed to do so many installations over the last few years.
How many installations you have done till now?
I'm proud to say, as of yesterday, we have completed 200 installations across 8 different states, different topography, terrain, landscapes, and 30 different forests, out of which 23 are tiger dominated landscapes.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. And that's
Wonderful.
in 8 years, less than 8 years. Less than 8 years, we've managed to do 200 installations. And that's because of, I think, of course, our supporters. Without our patrons, we couldn't have done. We are a not for profit NGO.
Hmm.
But I think here we have also, our NGO has also got tremendous support from the forest department, who have collaborated with us exceptionally well, and we have managed to do the installations um, with minimal, I would say, again, corporate support. We would like more corporates to support in wildlife conservation, especially direct wildlife conservation. Even now, when they do it, it's more for tree plantation and environment, etc. In that aspect,
Right.
there are very few takers, I mean, corporates who come and work directly in wildlife conservation. It's slowly changing, but I would like it to be a mandate. We have a policy paralysis. I
Right.
would like more active participation of corporates.
What kind of policies would you like to get into place?
Uh, a few, I would say, okay, this is part of my wildlife activism history. I would definitely like the term man-eater to be completely banned in India, and not even the media should use it as loosely and flippantly that they use it. The forest department have to be more open and lose a little bit of the red tapeism if they want more support, especially with their budgetary constraints. They need outside support, and well-meaning corporates, individuals, they have to open up a little bit more. For the forest department, I would say that they need a huge capacity building to be done, because we don't have enough wildlife veterinarians who are working inside the forest, with the increase in the human wildlife conflict. So
Right.
we have on paper a task force, but they are not as well equipped, trained, skilled to handle wildlife. Every time a wild animal is captured, it's like, hit and miss, and hoga nahi hoga pata nahi. So there is a lot of uncertainty. We need to be more professional in the way we manage wildlife which stray outside the forest. As far as the policymakers are concerned, for the government, I think they have to make wildlife conservation a mandate. It has to be done irrespective of what else you choose. Like, for example, now they have girls' education, or education, women's empowerment, sanitation, many other things, or afforestation. That is all in silos. I feel we have to, incorporate wildlife conservation and forest conservation as part of, let's say it's 2% of their profit, annual profit, that they need to give for
Mhm.
CSR. At least 0.1% of that must be forest conservation, must be wildlife conservation.
It's good that with your water resources in the forest, a lot of wild animals would not be getting out into the areas
Yes.
inhabited by the humans.
Yes. Yes, so that's what happens, because when there is a water crisis and the migratory corridors are blocked, and the animals then move towards the forest, towards the human settlements outside of the forest. And that's also because there's lack of water, especially in summer. The forest department is not able to do watershed management. They are not able to do grassland management. There's no water. So the wild herbivores will go outside the forest and for food, and raid the farmer's crop, which
Yeah, for
leads to
food
a
and
lot of
water.
loss.
Yeah,
Yeah, both, because when the wild herbivores go out, their predators follow them, and then the casualties happen on both sides. Both humans and wildlife lose lives. So we try to provide water in a reliable and consistent manner, so that in a predictable manner, so that the forest department can do the grassland management. The herbivores, wild herbivores, have food and water inside the forest and don't need to go out. This mitigates human wildlife conflict, the fatalities, morbidity, and also like road kills, because accidents in
obviously
a
they're
road
not going
kill.
on the roads. Yeah,
Yeah, they're not going on the road to cross to go to the human settlements. So when there are road kills, it is not just the animal which dies. Even human beings traveling in automobiles can, get
yeah,
into
it
an
can cause a
accident.
major accident. Yeah,
Yeah. So
you're correct.
in these ways, also we are trying to minimize the conflict situations that arise from wildlife moving outside the forest. I
What is the
admit
biggest
that we
logistical
started.
or bureaucratic problem or challenges which you faced?
I think it is beyond the honeymoon period, where the forest department supports us a lot with doing the installation. They are wary of us asking them for monitoring methods. They are asking, I mean, they don't always tell us for the maintenance and service. Our NGO ensures and takes care of all wildlife, all the installations in the wildlife areas with 5 year, we don't say warranty, we do all the repairs and everything, whatever is needed. If the forest department tells us something is not working, we immediately attend to the problem, because we take responsibility for it. So our water stewardship is not limited to just providing water and leave. For five
Right.
years we ensure. But it's heartening to know that even in Pench Tiger Reserve, where we did the installation in 2018, in November, when I asked the deputy director of Pench, if the sites are functioning. He said, yes, all three sites are still functioning that were done from 2018, except one where the motor had got spoiled. The department didn't tell us, but they repaired it and it is still working. So all three installations are still functional. But the challenge is that we need support from the forest department beyond the installation stage. We need to get that support because we have to show that support. I mean, we have to instill faith in our donors. Our donors, especially the corporates, they would like some monitoring to show impact. These are areas, yeah, these are areas where I feel the forest department needs to open up a little bit more. Because now they take the installation, but we don't get adequate monitoring and impact studies done. Some places, forest, they have agreed. We have done a third party research also done, which has shown the outcome and the impact to be beneficial. Those kind of studies they need to support.
Are these pumps working continuously 24 hours or the forest guard switch them off and on?
Yeah. So there are both options we see. Some places which are so remote, there is no forest guard or chowki or a patrolling camp nearby. We leave it on auto mode. Otherwise, most of the sites, we always try and give one supply to the remote anti-patrolling camps because the staff also really struggle to get water in summer. If the tanker doesn't reach them, then it's very difficult for them. So those places, we leave the point accessible to the forest guards or the staff present there to use it. It is not on automated mode. And the advantage of keeping it in the staff quarters is also that we will come to know if the installation is not working.
Yes.
Because the forest guards, now the staff, now that they are used to having water there, if it's not there, then immediately we get a call and say, it's not working, please come and repair. So that is a dual benefit we get by giving water to the staff.
So most of these forest guards are trained if there's a small problem or malfunctioning.
At the basic level, we train them how to maintain the solar panels and keep it clean, etc. Some sharpshooting methods are told to them. Otherwise, we also train a local electrician and plumber, usually used by the department, so that they can do some firefighting. If not, our technician, either we can do telephonic support and provide resolve the issue, but if not, we send our technician. Whatever parts need to be repaired, anyway, nowadays hardly any parts are repaired, most are just replaced. So we take up the replacement cost and everything, and we do the installations, get the installations operational.
What are some of these simple but impactful water positive habits individuals can adopt to reduce pressure on natural ecosystems?
First, we have to understand that water is a precious commodity. It is really precious because groundwater is depleting even in our forests. The fact that there are bore wells in the forest where our solar pump sets are submerged to draw water onto the ground to replenish the groundwater. If our forests are getting drier than they were earlier, it means we are over extracting water outside the forest. So maybe, I mean, this is not a great thing to say, but our farming methods have to use minimal water that is otherwise wasted, I feel, for farming and agriculture. That has to be addressed, but it's a sensitive topic, so nobody really wants to take on. At an individual level, first thing is even just keeping the tap closed when we are brushing our teeth. I know as a dentist, I go back to teeth, but the tap is just left open while we are brushing and washing our face, everything. We don't think of shutting the tap when we don't need that water. Simple thing to just ensure that leaks are addressed immediately. While we say that keep a bowl of water for wildlife in summer, what our NGO is doing the same. We are just providing water, not keeping a bowl. We are providing that water inside the forest. Water, we have to take part and more responsibility for the amount of water we consume and waste. Industries here can lead. See, farmers, it's difficult, but our industries can lead the role here. Our corporates can lead the role here and actually say when it is beyond the fence, they are not just working around in that 50-kilometer range. They will ensure that water is safe, water security is safe for us in the forest, which is beyond that 50 kilometers. The trees which are cut, Yes, we are reaching from one point to the other, and the tree is supposedly blocking our way, moving fast. But if we are not going to get the oxygen given by the trees, then there's no point in reaching there fast. We have to try more and work with our elected representatives to ensure that forest conservation, trees protection, it's the tree which actually even holds the soil. So by
Right.
actually, yeah, so actually by providing water, we are even preventing soil erosion. Otherwise, the most nutrient part of the soil gets blown away in the wind, and the farmers don't get nutrient soil. At every level we can work, at different levels, rather strata of the society, we can work towards water conservation.
You are also working with marginalized communities and underprivileged women and stray animals.
Yeah. uh, the underprivileged women and young girls whom we support in forested communities, that is largely coming from my personal desire to improve the menstrual health of these women. Unfortunately, menstruation is a taboo subject even today amongst many women, even in urban areas, more so in these rural and forested areas. So they tend to use cloth, which is not very hygienic. They don't have
Right.
enough water to even maintain that hygiene. So their menstrual hygiene is compromised. So as part of what we would like to support the local communities, we provide compostable sanitary napkins to the underprivileged women and girls for the entire year. We don't supply just one box and come. We give it the entire supply that's needed for a year for them, and that's very dear to me. So that is part of my women's empowerment initiatives. Unfortunately, that stray animal community animals that we support, that aspect is highly neglected, not just because we don't have the bandwidth, but also because we don't get enough funding for it. We would like to support and do more work there, but there we support only through individual feeders or fosters or caregivers or shelters, animal stray animal shelters. That's how we support our green brigade. We call it the street brigade.
Many corporates, struggle to find CSR partners. How can you have a strong bonding with these companies?
So we are now reaching out to, I would say, my personal experience compared to how it was, let's say, 2 years back. The last 2 years, we are approaching more corporates, and they are at least willing to listen. Where we are lacking is in actually conforming to their format of
CSR.
outcomes and impact, because they are used to showing all those figures and data and all that. Now collecting data from the forest becomes quite a bit of a challenge. We are now trying to overcome that with using technology which will not in any way compromise the security and safety of the forest. We are trying to see whether we can extrapolate data. One of the ways we have shown corporates now is that how our solar pump set installation is actually not only saving the national exchequer lakhs of rupees that it would have spent on diesel fuel for the water tankers, we are also minimizing the carbon emission that would have come from the water tankers, which is equivalent to having thousands of fully mature trees doing carbon sequestration for us. All
Right.
this by changing the modality of delivery of water. This is how now we are trying to work with corporates to show some kind of impact. More so now we will hopefully work with this organization which will help us give the moisture content available in a particular site to say that what it is, so that we know that the solar pump is working. It means if the moisture is good, there is enhanced biodiversity without us planting a single sapling. That's how we are trying to work with CSR. So now I think the talks are getting a little more serious with the corporates, and I'm sure like they can see how passionate I am. I know, yeah.
Dr. Sarta here is calling from her farmhouse, which is at Karzat.
Karzat near Mumbai. So we live in paradise, I feel, but there is trouble in paradise with internet connectivity.
It's okay. And she's
Yeah.
growing her own vegetables and she's growing her own rice. And here we are, while we are used to calling Zomato for everything. She's making her own food sitting out there, like which is wonderful. Tell us more about your
Uh,
farmhouse living.
Actually, even when we were practicing dentist, we bought our farm somewhere in 2006. We would still grow and eat the rice we grow organically. For the last 25 years, we have been eating our own rice. Vegetables,
Wow.
of course, is seasonal. Yeah, we have been doing that for the last 25 years with our practice. And since March 2025, when we came 2 days before the lockdown, and we are still here in our farm. We have not gone back to Mumbai to stay. We stay in our farm. It is truly beautiful. The greenery, the silence, all reminds me of the forest that I miss so dearly when I'm not in the forest.
Will you tell the guys who constantly keep on calling Swiggy and Zomato for everything?
If I was in Bombay, probably Mumbai, probably I would also do the same. But I think our schools, that's where I would start with. Our schools need to take children to the field. Now, last few years, since we are staying here, we actually do very little, but we actually do the planting of the rice sapling.
Hmm.
And there is definitely a deep connect and a huge respect for our farmers for the literally back-breaking work they do just to put food on the table. Food doesn't come from supermarkets. It comes
Right.
thanks to Mother Earth and our farmers. So I think every child or the school needs to take children for such kind of activities, to take to rural areas for them to actually see how food is grown, and that itself will bring a strong connect with nature, you know, and it will
Sounds like a
start
great
early.
idea. That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah,
The school should
it
do
is
that.
simple.
They should educate
Yes.
kids. Uh, Lots of kids don't even know which fruit grows on trees and which fruit
Yeah.
grows where.
Yeah. So I think when they come, I mean, it need not be, every month or every week or something, but they should take the children to farmlands, and, whichever school, wherever it is, whatever type of farming is done, we need to have that connect back with nature. Staring at our mobile phones and the laptop doesn't always help us connect with nature.
So, if any policymakers was listening today, what one change would you recommend to strengthen our water infrastructure for wildlife in India?
Definitely increase the budget and allocate it specifically to do solar installations to provide drinking water. What we are actually doing by providing water through solar installation is just that the animal or the forest is in ICU mode. We
Hmm.
are only doing what is needed as a immediate procedure. We are not addressing the back end issues that are there. We need to talk about water scarcity, otherwise soon water is going to become a purchasable commodity for each and every one of us, not just the fancy ones who can afford a bottle of water. So water should be prioritized, and the budget should be allocated for watershed management, better grassland management, because our human beings food security, water security comes from the forest. We if we so doing it is not charity for wildlife animals, it is human preservation we are doing. Maybe there also we are not being altruistic. It is more about getting oxygen for ourselves, food for ourselves, water for ourselves. So the policy makers have to, Earth Brigade Foundation or other NGOs cannot fulfill the number of installations that are needed in the forest now. It's only going to get worse. So the government has to have policy changes and allocate budgets for it.
Perfect. And looking ahead 10 years from now, what is your long-term plans for Earth Brigade?
Um, uh, I think we will definitely be growing much bigger. So our transition from 0 to 100 maybe took 4 years. It's less than 3 years or 2.5 years that we've managed to do another 100. By 10 we will do 1,000 for sure, by in another 10 years. But that thank you, but that's not the issue. As somebody who's trained in the medical field as a dentist, I strongly believe prevention is better than cure. So I would not like to do 1,000 installations if the better watershed management is done, better resources management is done inside the forest, and we ourselves take responsibility for the wastage of water, each one of us. I'll tell you a simple example. I never fill my as soon as I sit in a restaurant, our Indian tradition is so wonderful. First thing, everybody will give you a glass of water. If
Right.
I'm not thirsty and I'm not going to drink water, I refuse that water. If the waiter is pouring water in my glass, I will only ask him to pour how much I
Ah,
think I
yes.
want. If I want, I will ask again. It is such a small change I have brought because I have realized how difficult it is to get funding for my animals. So I've realized that I need that small little water that goes wasted, which if we don't touch it. If we
Is
even
that the
stop that,
message like to give our viewers?
yes, at every level, I just stop wasting water. Take as much as you need. See, Mother Nature provides for human needs. What she's unable to do is provide for human greed.
Oh, yes.
And it is our duty towards Mother Nature. I'm not doing anything special. I feel it is my duty towards Mother Nature. I also feel I am giving tuition fees to Mother Nature for what she has taught me. So each one of us can find whatever they would like to do and support Mother Nature.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you.
Really wonderful. It was really nice speaking to you, and
Thank you so
what
much,
a
Vinci.
lovely thought and what a lovely message to our viewers. Uh,
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Sarita, and all the best in all your efforts. And
Thank
we are waiting for you to reach the 1,000 soon.
you. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vinci, for having me over. Thanks a lot.
Take care. Have a nice day. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Same to you. Bye. Bye.
Today's conversation reminded us all of a simple truth. Water conservation is not just about human survival. It is about protecting forests, preserving wildlife, and safeguarding the delicate balance of our ecosystem. Dr. Sarita's inspiring journey shows us that real change happens when compassion meets passion. As responsible citizens, we can all contribute by reducing our carbon footprint, respecting natural ecosystems, supporting genuine conservation initiatives, staying aware and vocal about environmental protection. If this episode inspired you, please share it with somebody who also cares about the planet and Mother Earth.